What's going on, guys, and welcome to today's video. And today we are unfortunately not installing this new cool thing on the Jeep, but we are kind of doing preps for installing it on the Jeep. We are hopefully going to plan to put an Aussie locker in the front of this Jeep. Now, if you aren't familiar with an Aussie locker, it is an automatic style locker that goes into the factory carrier of the differential. So if it is a open differential, you would pull your spider gears out and install this in place. Now, this Jeep originally did have open differentials front and rear. It has since been swapped with Verilok axles, and that's a weird specific thing to second gen Grand Cherokees, where it is a fluid pump that pumps and applies pressure to clutches to kind of work like a locker. Now, what we found with off-roading these things is the rear Dana 44 Verilok seems to work very well. With about a revolution or so of tire slip, you have pretty good full lockup in the rear. The issue is the front. The Dana 30, it is such a small differential that we just assume, or we believe, the clutches are so small in diameter that they just don't have enough clamping power to be able to lock the front together. And that's where we will run into issues, is pulling up to ledges and trying to accelerate and just having it basically work like an open differential and spin to the other side versus the tire that is trying to get up on the ledge. This Aussie locker should fix that issue. Like I said, this is a locker, or a Detroit locker style ratcheting locker, that will go in the front of this thing. Now, I'm able to do that since this does have a select track transfer case. If it was all-wheel drive, you really would not want to put this in the front of your vehicle of any type, because you'd have really goofy on throttle steering, because anytime you are on throttle or there is torque applied to the drive shaft, it is going to be locked. So an all-wheel drive vehicle that has power being transmitted to the front differential, this is not going to be very nice in the vehicle. This that has a two-wheel drive position on the transfer case, there's no torque applied to that front drive shaft when you're normally driving on the street. So in theory, you shouldn't have any issues driving around. Now, yes, these do make some noise when you are turning, because those ratcheting teeth are popping or clicking as you are turning. To be honest, I have not ever personally heard an Aussie locker in a vehicle. I had a Wrangler years ago that had a Detroit locker in the back, so I kind of am familiar with that noise. But again, I really have not heard an Aussie locker. But today, I wanted to at least show us prepping or installing this Aussie locker in the carrier. Yes, I know we're not putting it in the Jeep today, but I'm kind of interested, since I have never done one before, to see kind of how it goes together. So guys, first off, we've got our Aussie locker here, and it's really not terribly complicated. We've got a couple of pins and a couple of springs. We've got the two pieces that will go around our center shaft that have the teeth that are going to connect to the replacement for those side spider gears. So that is the ratcheting mechanism that we will hear. But yeah, that's the main parts of it. And here is our factory Dana 30 carrier. The ring gear is obviously pulled off this thing, so it is just the carrier with the spider gears. Now, here is an open differential, as we can see, and when I turn one side, you can see that those spider gears all turn and work as a open differential. There is no locker, no limited slip. It is just one tire that would be getting power if you had a tire with less traction. And that's hopefully what we are changing today. So guys, step one of getting this apart is going to be removing the center pin here that holds all the spider gears. Now, most of the time, there is going to be a center pin bolt. Normally a little 8mm bolt that you would thread out, and then this center pin you could slide out. This Dana 30 has a roll pin, and I'm not really sure I have seen that, or I guess I've never had a Dana 30 apart to know that it had a roll pin. Now, as you guys can see, I've got this thing knocked out already. There is a little hole in the back of the carrier that you need to get a punch with a hammer and work that roll pin out. It is not very nice to do. And again, like I said, I guess I did not know that Dana 30s had a roll pin versus the normal little bolt that is normally bolted in. So in this case, once you get that roll pin slid out or your bolt pulled out, if it's a Dana 44 or a normal carrier, here's what you're going to be left with. Like I said, we will slide that center pin. We're just pushing it out and sliding it. Now once we've got that center pin out, we are going to be able to rotate these around and pull our side gears, or excuse me, I guess our spider gears out. Now be kind of cautious. These spider gears do have thrust washers on the sides of them that you're going to need to keep track of. And in this case, one of them is stuck in the carrier. So got that pulled out. Those do have thrust washers on those side gears. Also, again, make sure they're not stuck in the housing. And then again, last but not least, we've got our other side gear with its corresponding thrust washer. And now we should have an empty carrier. We've got nothing in the carrier. And we are ready to start assembling our Aussie locker. So our step one here is our new Aussie locker side gears, or the side locker gears, whatever you want to call those. We are going to need to swap our thrust washers from our side gears over to our new parts for the Aussie locker. And those should set into the housing. Again, we've got our other one, and that will set into the housing. The instructions talk about using wheel bearing grease to kind of help hold these into place. I, of course, do not have any at the house, so this might be a kind of circus act here, keeping everything in place as I try to assemble this thing. So again, now that we've got our new inner pieces, I guess, for this, we are, again, going to install these into the housing. And we are going to make sure our center pin hole is lined up as we start to assemble this thing. And again, if I had wheel bearing grease, it probably would make this process a whole lot nicer. I'm going to try to use a screwdriver here to hold this together during assembly. All right, so next we've got our pins and springs that hold tension here on the inner pieces, and our pin does have a little post where that spring is going to locate it. So we've got one side here that has a hole, and the other side that is the larger open side. And per the instructions, we are going to place the pin into the small side, or the not large open side, and then we've got our spring, which we are going to need to fish into place. We'll get it set on the peg, and then using a screwdriver, we've got that thing pressed into place. So you can see here the pin and our spring and everything kind of held to place even with just the one. So we'll then need to go around this thing and do all 4 of these pins. And I'm just using a kind of magnet to help feed that pin down into the lower hole. And then we've got our spring that will set into place. And again, with that same screwdriver, press down and we're there. So we'll double check just to make sure all of our pins are where they need to be and the springs are fully seated. And then we've got our cross pin that needs to get slid back in so we can get that roll pin back through. And again, we're going to need to obviously turn this so that cross pin is lined up. Now that we've got that cross pin in a normal normal carrier, we would tighten down the center pin bolt. This thing I'm going to have to pound my roll pin back in. And guys, just like that, we have an Aussie locker installed in a Dana 30 carrier. So really the only thing left is checking the gap. Apparently, if you've got worn out thrust washers on those side gears, your gap is going to be too large. They've got a center gap spacing that they want it. So I guess we will grab our micrometers here and see, I guess, make sure we are where we need to go. Zero this thing out. There we go. Helps if you are actually square to the thing you are trying to measure. But as you can see with my batteries dying, we are at 0.158 inches. And we are right between our recommended center gap of 0.145 and 1.7. So we are apparently right where we need to be. I guess that means our side gear thrust washers are not worn. So guys, now that we've got this carrier built, I just have the small task of installing it back in the Jeep. So obviously we are not doing that this video. I just kind of was interested to see the process of installing a Aussie locker, or often called a lunch box locker. That's, again, when you're using that factory carrier and just replacing those spider gears. I'm interested also to see how much noise this thing makes. Again, my Jeep does have two-wheel drive, so maybe it won't be that horrible when it's in two-wheel drive. I really don't know. I have never played with an Aussie or lunchbox style locker, never even driven a vehicle with it. So maybe it will be a horrible mistake and I will regret it instantly. I really don't know, guys. But yeah, so hopefully that was interesting. If you've never seen or heard of one of these style of lockers and kind of were interested to see how it went together, and honestly, it went together very easily. I don't think you could do this in car. You would obviously need to have your axle shafts pulled out, but I think if you had the ring gear on, it would be covering up enough of this area that you wouldn't be able to get things slid into place. But don't quote me on that. I just happen to already have this pulled out of the vehicle from when I Verilog swapped this Jeep. So yeah, hopefully next time we see the Jeep, I will be installing this and we will make it a little more capable off-road, and then hopefully we will actually be using the thing off-road and yeah, hopefully have a fully locking front, and hopefully it's not horrible on the trail, turning tight and doing all the things that it currently does well, and we aren't throwing the Verilog back in at the end of the day. Also, guys, I thought I would mention I do now have another little small channel. It is Tyler Potter RC. Don't have too many videos, obviously, yet, but we've got a few videos diving into the RC world. I didn't really want to throw those videos on this channel since we are so automotive related. So yeah, if you want to check out the link down in the description, Tyler Potter RC, if you are not tired already of hearing my voice and seeing my face, you can do it a little bit more there on that channel. Mainly talking dirt racing, carpet racing with RC cars, obviously. So go check it out if you're interested in RC, or again, not tired of hearing my voice yet. So guys, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.